suffering this? Is there no more fun? Is there no more joy? Don't we laugh anymore? And I wonder, does Trump laugh? Does he tell jokes? Well, I Googled it. Trump jokes. It came up. The first joke was, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Seriously, those are the kind of jokes they listed. The next one, the most recent one, is Ukraine started the war.
Yeah.
So obviously he doesn't have a tremendous sense of humor. So then I thought, well, how about other presidents? There have to be presidents with a sense of humor. Google it again. And a long list of very, very funny quotes from several different presidents. I just want to share a few with you. These stories about my intellectual capacity really get under my skin. You know, for a while I thought my staff believed it as well, because every morning I come into the office and the first thing we talk about, intelligence briefing. And who was that? George W. Bush, 43rd president. Here's another one. I have left orders to be awakened at any time in case of a national emergency, even if I'm in a cabinet meeting. Ronald Reagan. I only know two tunes. One of them is Yankee Doodle, the other is Ulysses Grant.
Oh gosh.
Calvin Coolidge, known as Silent Cal, was seated next to a young lady at a dinner party, and she said to him, I've got a bet with my friends that I'm going to get 3 words of conversation with you. To which he answered, you lose. The last one I'll share with you is that Ronald Reagan loved to make jokes, and one time he was visiting Queen Elizabeth, and they both liked to ride horses, so they go for a horseback ride together. And the Queen's horse had a bout of prolonged flatulence. And the Queen reportedly said, oh dear Mr. President, I'm so sorry. To which she responded, it's quite all right, Your Majesty. I thought it was the horse. So, not only do I want to maintain a positive attitude as we go along, I want to maintain a humor. We need a chuckle now and then, and I hope I provided them for you. I think it's going to help me, I know it will help me, to maintain that positive attitude, sense of humor, to get through this joke of a presidency. Thank you. Okay, now I would like to introduce our speaker, Margo Cowan. She has been involved since 2011, I believe, with an organization called Keep Tucson Together. Their mission is to provide proper representation for immigrants to make sure they get a fair trial. All those organizations certainly are under grave concern at this point. So, Margo, please come forward. The floor is yours.
I see a lot of friends here, a lot of friends that I have never had the pleasure of meeting, but it's a great honor to be here with you this afternoon. And I just want to share a little bit of information about the moment, and then I want to tell you about the Justice for All campaign. You know, we came within 10,000 signatures last go-round of being on the ballot. And at the time I was working full-time as a public defender, so I retired, and watch out. We're going to get on the ballot this time, but we need everybody's help. We need everybody's help. I just want to kind of give you an idea of this moment for people without documents in our community, because you know the clinic was in effect in Trump 1, and all of us were involved in what was going on in community then. But this time is much, much different. And, you know, we see the comments that he makes about all sorts of other areas and how, you know, rough and tough and brusque and all of that, cutting all the budgets and laying off all the employees and all those kinds of things. He is, well, what's happening in community is horrific. Most of the people that we see in our clinic are folks with blended families. In other words, you know, mom might be undocumented, dad's a U.S. citizen, or dad's undocumented, mom's a lawful permanent resident, but is eligible to be a citizen, but never had anybody that could help her. All the stuff we do at the clinic is free. I believe very strongly that one doesn't sell knowledge, but one shares knowledge. And so, you know, everybody that wants to be a citizen, but they don't have the money to pay a lawyer. I'm very proud of our citizenship team has produced more than 4,000 new U.S. citizens. And the moment is horrific. There are some families, there are asylum seekers primarily, that come and both parents and all the kids are without status. And we're seeing people now in the clinic that are not just from Mexico or say Guatemala sometimes. They're from all over, everywhere. They need people to produce their asylums. And so we have a fellow that used to be a judge in Mexico that I did his asylum. And he now produces all of the applications. And then we have a couple of retired college professors that do all the country conditions and all of that. Just last week, without a lawyer with them, 2 families won their asylums. Oh, wow. And we're really proud of that because, you know, we're very much committed to demystifying the law. It shouldn't be like a secret, you know. The community should understand not just superficially what their rights are, but with some depth what their rights are. And we always say to all the folks that come through Keep Tucson Together, you have to do me one big favor. You have to share what you learned here with the neighbors, with the people you go to church with all the fellows you work with. When you go to PTA meetings, the other people, you got to share this knowledge. You got to share it because knowledge is power, and you are a bit less afraid when you know the real deal, you know. So I'm very proud of the model that is KTT. Most of the folks that work at KTT, how many Border Patrol agents are in this room? You promise? Okay. Most of the people that work at KTT are without documents. And I'm really, really proud of that because it is truthfully community serving community. And my job is just to share the knowledge and answer the questions and build up that kind of capacity in community so that you don't have to come to the office for an appointment. You can talk to somebody you know that works there. And if that person can't answer the question, they know somebody that can. So that's the model that we've used for many, many years. And it is very, very effective in community. Sometimes employers call, and they say, well, you know, so-and-so's worked for me for a long, long time, but I'm afraid that they're going to do what's called an I-9 audit. They're going to come in and want to see my books and see, does this person have, you know, proof of U.S. citizenship or lawful permanent residence or whatever. So, you know, you always have to think that where there's a presentation, and this is the great spirit that I love about working in this community, is where there's a presentation and there's not a remedy that like jumps out to you and says, oh, well, I know what you can do, X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, in this situation, there aren't any traditional X, Ys, and Zs. So we created a subcontract. And you don't need to have any documents to enter into subcontract. Anybody can enter into a subcontract. So typically you think of subcontracts limited to like construction workers and people like that, because one of the requirements, the only requirement of a true subcontract is that the person that's the worker has to bring some tools, their own tools. Okay, so what tools do you think the ladies that clean the fancy hotels bring with them? Well, they bring solid tennies. And that's their tool. And so there's always a salida. You know, there's always a way. If we just look at the presentation, but we don't look at it in a traditional sense. We look at the words. Okay, what do you take to your job? You know, and we make it work. And that's the spirit. That's the spirit of community. That's how people, you know, stay and contribute and make our communities better places. Let me tell you a little bit about, well, a couple of things. One of our right-hand fellows, Raimundo Montes, back in the corner, put these together. And they're packets that you might take a look at. They're tailored for folks that don't have documents. But you all might know people like that, or they might work for friends of yours or something. So these are really important, and we've got a box of them, and I urge you to take them. The first one is Know Your Rights, which is important, and a couple of other sort of educational pieces. In here that's really important is a limited power of attorney. And so what that is if somebody, for example, has U.S. citizen kids, and they and their spouse are undocumented, and whether you're a relative or not, maybe they're just somebody that's been your best bud forever, this gives them and you power to take care of the kids if mom and dad and or are taken. So that's in here. There's also a general power of attorney in here, and they're just things that give people a sense of security. And we do these. You all can do them. They're not rocket science, and all the pieces of the puzzle are here. But people need to know that they can make those kinds of arrangements too. You know, one thing about being without status is that unfortunately all of the administrations in our government has done very successfully is make people think they don't have any rights. You know, that their job is to do the dirty work and hide out and you know, take whatever they're given and be thankful, and that's it. That's not true. Everybody in the United States, when you're in the United States, we all have the same rights. And so these documents are prepared for whomever. This is another really handy card. And this was, and these are if you know people who are without documents, or you have friends that folks work for them or whatever, you should look at these and you know, pass them on. This is sort of a Know Your Rights card. It was produced by a group of like nationwide lawyers like ACLU and others that put this together. So people can carry this in their wallet. You know, so if someone's wondering, do they have to open the door? No, no abre la puerta. Do they have to answer questions? No, no conteste preguntas. Do they have to sign something? No, no firma nada. Okay. I mean, people assume that because they have no status, they have no rights. And that's not true. Once you're in the United States, we all have the same rights. So we have these packages, and maybe you personally don't know of somebody that could benefit, but maybe you know somebody that does, and take however many you want and just pass them around. So that's today. Okay, this is a sign that we're passing out to everybody and asking them to post your houses, your stores, your whatever. And the reason is during Trump 1, we passed out about 8,000 in Pima County. Half of those were to undocumented families, and the other half were to folks like us. So it's not like the Border Patrol sees one and says, "Oh, I'm gonna go there. I can get those guys right there," you know. And here's the thing about immigration law: it's an administrative proceeding, and we're made to think that it's a criminal proceeding. It's not. It's an administrative proceeding. So it's like, okay, your Social Security check didn't come this month. So there are things that you do. That's an administrative proceeding. Or they reduced the amount of the check and didn't send a letter and say, we're going to reduce your check by X. Well, how do you fuss about that? You file an administrative notice. You say, I want to tell an administrative judge that this isn't fair.
Okay.
I should have had notice or something else. Okay. That's what immigration is. It's administrative. And it's treated like it's super criminal, you know. Now, I'm not talking about how did you enter the country. You know, it's very hard to prove that somebody entered without inspection unless they say they entered without inspection. It's very hard. So the number of cases that are actually criminal are really few. The thousands and thousands of people have administrative issues. I want to tell you a little story about some women that came from Venezuela, and they went to, and their kids, and they went to Chicago, and I don't know why, but they went to Chicago. Then they were there for a little bit, and they connected with family and friends around the country, and so they all went to where, you know, their connections were. And they all, this is before temporary protected status was eliminated, which was just happened a few days ago by this president, the current president. Temporary protected status means our government acknowledges that the sending country is in turmoil, and people have legitimate reasons to flee. And so although we're not saying you're going to be a lawful permanent resident immediately, we're going to protect you. So it's temporary protected status. So this group of women all had temporary protected status. And this one woman that was able to communicate with her husband, who ended up in Tucson, decided to come to Tucson. So they all have to check in with ICE periodically. So she went to ICE in Chicago, and she said, I'm going to Tucson, and here's my address. Well, ICE didn't tell the immigration court that she had come and checked in, like she always checked in. So she was ordered deported in absentia. And you might have read that maybe about a week ago, she went to the grocery store with 2 of her 4 children in the car. She was stopped by a city policeman, a Tucson police officer. And the first thing that he said to her was, let me see your documents. Not, you're going too fast, you're going too slow, let me see your license, your tail lights out. Nothing that has to do with his scope, right? Let me see your documents. Well, she didn't have any documents. She was going to the grocery store. And he immediately called the Border Patrol. They were there really within minutes. And she was stopped about 9:30 at night. She was in Villahermosa, Tabasco, the next morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so she didn't get processed, you know, with any kind of due process, but this is not a public plane that she was taken on. This is a military plane.
Yeah.
But there's no other explanation. She can't call up, like the government can't call up American Airlines and say, will you take this lady to Villahermosa, you know? So that's happening in our town. That's why, and I share that story. And her husband and the other 2 children were at home, waiting for him to come home from the grocery store. So we connected them with some services in Mexico, but they aren't Mexican citizens, they're Venezuelans. And so in Mexico they are undocumented. And she was stranded down there by herself, knowing nobody in Villahermosa. And a Catholic priest who had worked in Mexico City talked to the Catholic priest in Villahermosa and made arrangements for the mom and the 2 kids to be safe until the dad and the other 2 kids could get down there. The problem is that the United States is pressuring Mexico not only to put, I think it's either 10 or 15,000 soldiers on the border, Mexican soldiers on the border, to interdict people before they cross, but also to deport all these people that are in Mexico from sending countries that are not Mexicans. Now that's really, really horrific, because if you can't stay in your country of origin, and you have to leave, and this family had a very strong asylum application. We would have won her asylum case. Very, very strong case. So if you have to leave, and you can't, how do you cross Mexico? You can't cross. And then how do you get to the United States? And at this moment, how are you able to even be in a position to go through an immigration process and file your applications? So that's the real deal in the streets. And that's very, very different. I've been doing this for 200 years, way too long. And I've never seen this kind of position where, I could not prepare an asylum application for someone and file it, and then immediately it would trigger an administrative process of, okay, you can talk to the judge, you can tell her what's happening, and blah, 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 blah. If it's denied, you can appeal. A process, like a respectful process that you rely on, and you tell people, here's what we can do in terms of your status. Gravity of this moment and the suffering that this community is experiencing. So now I want to tell you about the campaign, because many of you signed the petition last go-around, and many of you circulated the petition last go-around, Justice for All, Justicia para Todos. And the idea is to create a public defender office that would represent non-citizens who are put in removal proceedings and are too poor to hire a lawyer. Just like when I was a public defender, people who were charged with serious felonies and didn't have enough money to hire a lawyer were appointed a public defender. Same thing. So that's what this is, and we're once again circulating petitions. Now, last time around, we got 85,000 signatures, and we needed 95,000. This year, my goal is 125,000. We have to turn those in by July 1st of 26. So I brought a whole box of these, and they have 2 petitions on each clip. And I'm asking people to consider taking a clipboard and getting 30 people who are registered to vote in Pima County to sign this. Because it's the only way that this is going to happen this time around, is for us to reach out to everybody who understands the horror of the moment and is willing to put a little bit of effort into standing with families. Even though you haven't met them, you can imagine who they are. Yeah. So we have a list back there. We have street yard signs. Yellow signs are really important because they're all over, predominantly Tucson, but I'm sure there are some around here, that are on homes of undocumented families. And so now we need to put them on our homes. So it doesn't stand out that, oh, this is an undocumented family that lives here. They just become common and seen all over the place. So to the extent that folks would take those and put them up, and if you live in a complex where you can't put up posters and things, maybe just stick it in the window. Or maybe put it in your living room. But some way so that people that you have contact with can ask you, what do you mean about that? They're never going to come and get you. Well, let me tell you what happens to people without papers. Because it's really important that we share this knowledge. It can't be a secret. Like what happened to that mom can't be a secret. We had these four guys that have been our clients for a long time. A grandfather, a father, and 2 sons. They were going somewhere last weekend. I don't know where they were going. They were stopped again by a city policeman. They were handcuffed. They were held for an hour until they could identify that they were just guys. And they were, I think grandpa and father are lawful permanent residents. I think the boys were U.S. citizens. And they took the cuffs off, and they had cuts on each of their arms, each of their wrists. So we're not talking about, I'm sorry, madam, I'm going to have to cuff you, but it won't hurt. We're going to talk for just a little bit. I have to check something. No, there's out and out torture of people to scare them to death. And none of these fellows had ever been stopped for anything. Nada. And not only were they stopped, in my view, they were tortured. Because they had no reason to put cuffs, and they certainly had no reason to put them to the extreme that they would cut their... And look where they are. Look where they are.
Yeah.
You know? It's not like it's on a toe. It's right on top of a serious artery. So unfortunately, that's what's happening in our community. And you know, I want to answer any questions that you have. But I really, 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 I want you to think about this and talk to your people that you know that are registered. And you know, all of us in this room are community activists. You wouldn't be here on Saturday afternoon if you didn't care about your community. And so please, you know, there's only 30 people, just registered voters. We need to get, my goal is 125,000. You know, we need to be on the ballot in Pima County. I know it will pass. That I know. It's just a question of getting it on the ballot. So, what all are your thoughts? What are your questions?
Before you answer any questions, taking the petition, you can sign it out with me. Make sure the people that are signing the petitions are Arizona voters.
Pima County.
Pima County.
Yep.
Pima County.
Yep.
Not Santa Cruz. I was with Sheriff David Hathaway yesterday down in Santa Cruz. He's pushing hard back against Operation Stone Garden. And however, his problem is ISIS has come in and hired his deputies, and they're now making 3 times as much money as he is. So
Yes.
we need to help our law enforcement.
That's right.
I have a microphone for questions.
I have a question. Could you tell about the not immigration judges, but the judges that have been fired that were for asylum judges? That happened recently, didn't it?
Yes, it did. That's a weird one. Because, you know, part of what we do as lawyers in immigration court is we try and drag it out as long as possible. I mean, we want to win, but we don't want to take a chance that we're not going to win. So the first level, you know, we file all sorts of motions, we have all sorts of hearings. You know, if it's denied, then we take it up on appeal, and if it's denied there, we take it up on the next level of appeal. We can tie him up for 5 or 6 years, which is good because this guy will be gone, in theory, right? But yeah, it's a complete, you know, flip.
I wanted to know if the Tucson police are told to do racial profiling for stopping people like you mentioned, or what's the deal there, or the county either?
Well, you know, that's a great question, and both the chief of police and the sheriff said that the Border Patrol and Tucson Police would not collaborate, not Border Patrol, Pima County Sheriff and Tucson Police would not collaborate with Border Patrol. And that's not what we're seeing in the street. So, you know, I've talked to a couple of people on the Board of Supervisors about it. I've talked to the mayor and one city councilwoman about it. You know, we just have to get our documentation out there. And yeah, the question was, how do we put pressure on the police department? Well, that's a really good question because in general, they're going to tell you they don't do that. But you know, everybody can say, now you've heard it from me, and I certainly would not stand up here and lie to you, that's not true. And maybe you all know people too that have had these kinds of experiences, and that as a taxpayer, you know, this is you tell me one thing and you do something else.
Do you know if our HOAs can tell us we can't put those big yellow signs up?
You know, I think it goes with each different one. But where you can put it, if you can't put it on the window in the living room facing out, you can put it in the living room facing in. And everybody that comes to see you will say, wow, why do you have that up? And then that's a great learning experience.
Could you explain to us exactly how Justice for All is going to correct the situation?
Yes, I can. Good question. Thank you. Justice for All will create the right to a public defender to be appointed for everyone who meets the financial guideline and is not financially in a position to hire their own lawyer. Like when I was a public defender, and I did felonies, and so there's a scale, and perhaps a person might not be at the end of the scale, but maybe they're at 35% of the scale, or 56%. So then it's prorated.
Oh, okay.
And if they don't meet that criteria,
Well, then and if they don't meet the criteria, then at least in theory, they would have enough money to hire counsel. Very, very few people who are here without documents are going to be able to hire them. I would guess 99% of the folks will be eligible for appointed counsel. I just want to say that we would be the first border county to do this in the country.
Yes, I have a question. Is there anything we can do as citizens if we see something happening like what happened with the Venezuelan woman? I mean, if she doesn't know her rights, if they're going to, talking to her or anything, and someone needs help, can we step in?
Yes, you can. Remember, this is an administrative proceeding. Yes, you can. And if it's like actually a confrontation kind of thing, and you can just see that it's completely inappropriate, take a picture. And get it to an elected official, or to me, to someone to tell the story.
One thing to add to that is, if you see it, record it, picture it. If you see federal agents at an apartment complex, there have been many attorneys out in the community with megaphones, pretty much screaming whatever's in the back of the cars and the folders. That you can pretty much do. You can be in the public sidewalk. You're not interrupting them because you're in public property, so you can actually be helping them. So there's been a lot of activism going on. Most important one here is if you see a stop and you see a border patrol, if you see the sheriff or the police and you see a border patrol agent with it, stop, take pictures, record it, send it to us, send it to your representatives. That way we can have them be like, hey, you say you're not doing it. Here's the evidence that you are.
That's Raimundo from our office. Really, really proud of that little brother. Yes.
Yeah, do you, for the folks that have HOA issues, do you have bumper stickers for Justice for All?
No, but that's a good idea. We certainly could get some. Okay. We'll get some and send them down. How's that? Okay. But you still can put that in the living room. And then people that come to visit will say, well, what's that about? Is somebody after you or whatever? And then that opens the door to say whatever.
I have a dear friend who's a caregiver, and she's a naturalized citizen, but she has misplaced her papers. Where would she get a copy? How could she redocument her naturalization?
She should just come to our office and we'll get it.
I'll send her there. Thank you.
730 South Osborne.
Good.
Anybody, 730 South Osborne, 8:30 till more or less 4 o'clock. And we have a clinic at Pueblo High School every Thursday night. It starts at 5:30, and we don't leave until everybody's gone. And if you don't have to have an appointment, people can come and just ask all sorts of questions. The undocumented person, mostly the community comes. But that doesn't always happen. I mean, a lot of times contractors or employers or somebody comes and says, that it's funny, they always start off, I have a hypothetical. So, okay, that's cool. We do hypotheticals. No hay problemas, that's okay, that's fine. All we're about is sharing that knowledge, But folks can come. I know it's a trip for you, but we're in the Pueblo cafeteria every Thursday from 5:30 to whenever. The other thing there, I want to say thank you to some Samaritans that are here, because I feel like our clinic is a target. I feel like at any time, Border Patrol or ICE are going to try and bust in or something. There's no basis for them to have a warrant. But the Green Valley SAMs and the Tucson SAMs have created little teams, and they come and sit in our office every day, all day long. And, give them a round of applause.
Has it been effective?
It's been killer, and the gang, the people that work there, and the clients that come. It's hard for us at times to talk about racism. It's really hard to figure out how to talk about it. But the gang in the office is like all these old white people care about us, and in a way that's really sad. But in another way, it's really killer. Because they feel so, wow, these people come and they sit with us. And I got to tell you a funny story, and then I'll catch whoever's in the corner. I was coming, and there were two Sams sitting on the front porch, and because it's just it really is delightful, Some Sams sit right by the door, and have the door locked. It has like a cast iron door kind of thing. And if somebody comes, then they open it and they let them come. Then they lock it again, right? Okay. And everybody sort of has their idea of security. But these two women were sitting on the porch in chairs, and they had their hands across their chest, and they had really grumpy faces on. And I said, "Hey, you guys, what are you doing?" "We're practicing on being mean looking." And they're like, "I hope they come when we're here." Now to the folks that work in the clinic, that's like $1 million. Look at those old ladies sitting out there, hoping they come when they're there. It's just because our communities don't have opportunities to come together.
Right.
They just don't. And so when they do, it's beautiful. I'm encouraging all of you to come and sit for an hour or two.
Margo, do you have other volunteer opportunities that people in Green Valley could do by coming up to Tucson?
Well, sure. There's we do tons of asylums. We have a couple of retired college professors that do research. We always, if you in your other life did anything scholarly or with research or any of that, you really don't have to know a ton of stuff to figure out what's going on in Villahermosa, Tabasco. Just get on the computer and see what you can find. So there's that kind of stuff. We have the naturalization clinic. The people that worked in that clinic are now at the office because I think it's safer for them. But there's all sorts of naturalization applications that need to be prepared, asylum applications. So there's a ton of stuff. And we are mostly engaged in doing the stuff that has to get filed and that kind of thing, or filed with the court. Which that means is that we have piles of files that need to be archived and organized and all that. So we have what I would say are terrible jobs, and then we have interesting jobs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, Margo, I just wanted to say that the Green Valley Samaritans that are working in your office are so proud to be there. And many of us are winter visitors, and as the winter begins to end and people are going home, we're going to run out of some of our volunteers that come and sit at your office at the door and with me or whatever. So, if there's anyone here that is year-round, we're really begging for people that will be able to come in April, May, June, until we all come back in the fall and can start again.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thanks.
So, I'll be here for a few minutes if you want, if there's any of you.
I'm one of the Green Valley Samaritans that has done this. It's not frightening. Margo has a list of what we should do, and it's laid out very nicely. The staff are very nice. They offer us food. And if there's a job we can do, they'll ask us to do it. But please consider it. It's not frightening at all.
And it's really makes a huge impression on the community.
Yeah.
They're just like, wow, these people care about us.
What do folks do that come through your office if they need medical assistance?
That's a little bit more difficult. We used to have this sort of underground organization called the Book Club. and it was all nurses and doctors. And they were still in practice at all the hospitals in Tucson. And so we would call somebody from the book club, and they would make arrangements for whatever was necessary. But now almost all of them have retired. Sometimes I call on them to try and call on somebody, but that's more dangerous. More stick. St. Mary's is good. St. Mary's doesn't call Border Patrol. University does. TMC does. Well, y'all, some of you come visit us. Everybody, please take a petition, take a clipboard. You know, we really appreciate it.
Your address again, your address, 730 South Osborne?
Yes, that's it.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Margo. That was wonderful. It's so sad that we're at a point where you have to be protected by little old women. I mean, where are we? Where are we going? If you were at the meeting a couple of weeks ago, I ended the program by reciting a German poem, and I'd like to do it again. First, they came after the socialists. I wasn't a socialist, so I didn't speak up. And then they came after the Jews, and I'm not Jewish, so again, I didn't speak up. And then they came after the labor unions. I wasn't a tradesman, so I didn't speak up. And then they came after me, and there was no one left to speak up. Please, speak up wherever you can. Thank you all for coming. Have a good weekend.